Can Purdue start out the Barry Odom era 2-0? Find out today.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host for today. I am Nick Garvin. We're talking everything Purdue ahead of that big Week 2 matchup tomorrow against the Southern Illinois Salukis. Today's episode is brought to you guys by our friends at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start placing your future bets now. And we are right in the midst of football season and a big Week 2 matchup at that. A lot on the line, although it is an FCS opponent. The Southern Illinois Salukis are not a team to take lightly because they're in the hardest conference in FCS football, that being the Missouri Valley. They face off against teams like North Dakota State, and that builds a team of winners. And that is what we see with Southern Illinois. They go in last week and they get a big, although not against quite the highest quality opponent, they do face off against Thomas More College, and they get it done in a big way, 49-3. So Southern Illinois comes into this one much like Purdue after a dominant win in Week 1, although a little bit of a different scenario. Barry Odom is going into his second game at Purdue, and for Southern Illinois, their coach is long tenured at that university. Nick Hill has been there for 10 years now, and he's really turned Southern Illinois into a program to really watch out for. And FCS upsets have happen. I'm not saying they're going to happen against Purdue, but you can't take Southern Illinois lightly. And we know that Barry Odom has talked about that all week, about how this is a program we're going to play nameless, playerless football. It doesn't matter what the name is. It doesn't matter what division they are in. It doesn't matter if they're FCS, FBS, what conference. Purdue needs to go in. They need to take this team like it's any other team, and they need to play with that competitive nature. And a guy to look out for when you talk about Southern Illinois is their quarterback, and a guy by the name of DJ Williams. DJ Williams is going to come to play, and he came to play last week, throwing 3 touchdowns in the air, getting one in on his feet. DJ Williams is a dual threat quarterback who can get it done. He can make the big throws. He can improvise on his feet, and it's a guy to watch out for Purdue, and that's going to be our first key to victory. It's going to be containing a guy in DJ Williams, not letting him do what he wants to do. And he did it last week. He can't do it tomorrow night at Ross-Ade, because that's where Southern Illinois will be able to find success. If you're able to limit DJ Williams, if you're able to make him go through his reads, not have his first read, have to improvise, that's where you find success. Don't let DJ Williams do what he wants to do. And the linebacker core for Purdue has been very solid. We saw that against Week 1. Kind of going into this season, we knew on the defensive side of the ball, those linebackers would kind of be the best spot on defense. And we saw it. Mani Powell had a great game with a big sack on third down. Carrera really stepped up. And Sanders Ellis, Tennessee State transfer, he comes in, didn't have the flashiest game, but does record a sack. And I expect that we're going to see a lot from Sanders Ellis tomorrow night at Ross-Ade in that night game. The defense needs to be hot. They need to contain Southern Illinois early and not let them get anything going. If you're able to get ahead of this team, if you're able to get on the board first, if your defense is able to contain them, then you're going to have a decent amount of success. But when you let teams hang around, we saw that in Week 1, obviously, some of those Big Ten teams, especially Wisconsin against Miami of Ohio, they let that team really hang around for a lot. And that's something that if you're Purdue, if you're Barry Odom, you don't want to see happen. So get ahead of Southern Illinois early and assert that defensive dominance that we saw in Week 1. That comes down to the linebackers, but then on the offensive side of the ball, you have to get up early. If your defense is able to force 3 and outs, you need to get the ball and you need to be able to score. And last week we saw a lot of success with that. A lot of that was kind of on the shoulders of Ryan Brown, who was able to get a little bit of whatever he wanted. He got Armand Branch involved several times in the first quarter, over 100 yards in that first quarter for our guy Armand Branch. And of course, that big touchdown to open up the game. And we need to see more of the same. We need to see Ryan Brown making those high IQ throws, being careful with where he's throwing the ball, not turning the ball over. But someone that I want to see get a little bit more involved is that running back in Devin Mockabee. We know that he's due for a big year, but he didn't get a whole lot of touches in that week 1 game. And a lot of that was just the success that Ryan Brown was having. Devin Mockabee, even on a bit of an off game, still records over 100 yards, all-purpose yards. But I want to see him get a little bit more involved on the ground. I want to see him get more touches early. I want him touching the ball 4 times on that opening drive if you don't have a big touchdown like we saw in week 1. But I want to open up that run game early, and there's nothing wrong with the play action. We saw that Purdue was able to get that play action open early, and a lot of that is due to the threat of Devin Mockabee. But you need him to assert himself in the run game, and that threat's not always going to be there. It'll be there against Ball State, but against a team like USC, who has more talented DBs, more discipline on that squad, you're going to need to assert the running game. And we know that Devin Mockabee is capable of doing that. We saw that early where he breaks off a big 10-yard gain on the right side that opens up that play action. But I want to see it early. I want to see it often, and I want to see the mock train get involved. So I want to see more touches for Devin Mockabee. I want to see that run game get asserted. And then we talked about it in this offseason between the quarterback battle with Ryan Brown and Malachi Singleton. It really came down to the fact that Ryan Brown was able to not turn the ball over as much going into the final weeks. That's really what won him the job. We saw a little bit of a turnover issue throughout the offseason. And in week 1, you wouldn't even be able to notice that it was there because Purdue doesn't turn the ball over once. They play very disciplined football, only getting 3 penalties for 25 yards against Ball State. But that's something that needs to continue throughout this year. That's something that needs to continue into tomorrow if Purdue is going to find success. You don't have the margin of error this year to turn the ball over at a high rate. You need to take care of that football. And then for Ryan Brown, not throwing interceptions. When that pocket collapses, when you have to get out on the run, improvise, make sure that you're taking care of the football. If you have to run it, take a short game, you do that. If you're able to find somebody downfield, we saw Michael Jackson was really able to get involved whenever that scramble drill kind of initiated. Ryan Brown was able to find Michael Jackson, but that's not always going to be there. So for Ryan Brown, we haven't seen an issue with it yet, but just maintaining disciplined football, being able to make the high IQ plays, not turning the ball over, and being consistent like he's been able to do so far. I can't knock the guy too hard, but just staying consistent with that, making high IQ throws, not turning the ball over. And that's a great recipe for success for Purdue. And this is going to be a big game, a bigger one than a lot of people expect because it is an FCS opponent. It is Southern Illinois. So not the biggest game in the world, but for Barry Odom, it's very important because the last time a coach has started off his coaching tenure at Purdue 2-0 was in 1916. And Barry Odom has the chance to really start something historic at Purdue. We've talked all offseason about how this era isn't going to get the respect they deserve. This team isn't going to get the respect they deserve until they earn it on the field. And they have the perfect opportunity to earn something huge for their head coach. That's obviously a huge honor if you're able to start off this Barry Odom era 2-0. So this game has a lot more stakes than a lot of people kind of expect or a lot of people intend to see going into this one. And all I can say is that Ross-Ade is going to be rocking. Near sellout week 1 against Ball State. That one was a noon kickoff, even though it is Southern Illinois. Just think about the excitement that's going to be around that one. Think about the buzz. And I think that we're in for a very great environment tomorrow night against Southern Illinois. But moral of the story, you can't take this team lightly. It is an FCS opponent, but it is a team that is very good, a team that is mature, has great head coaching, and a team that has kind of a desire to win. They have that hunger, as most FCS teams do. And like I said, we saw Austin Peay beat Middle Tennessee. We saw Tarleton beat Army, and obviously neither Middle Tennessee or Army are at the level Purdue is, but FCS upsets do happen. So Purdue needs to come in. They need to keep their minds up. Hey, this isn't an opponent. This is a nameless opponent. It could be anybody. Anybody can have success any Saturday and really put that to them. And then the last thing I want to bring up, Barry Odom brought it up, but just playing 4 quarters of football, as good as Purdue was week 1 against Ball State, there were times where on the defensive side of the ball, not finishing tackles, not being not pursuing the ball at the energy level that you need to be. And then on the offensive side of the ball, just playing catch, making sure that you hit your guys and then they catch the ball. So Just make sure you play 4 quarters of football, lay it down, stay dominant, get up early. And I think that Purdue is going to have a pretty good opportunity to get this one done Saturday against Southern Illinois and get Barry Odom into historic company, being the first head coach since 1916 to start his Purdue tenure off 2-0. We'll talk about the 3 biggest guys tomorrow who are going to be the biggest people for Purdue in order to secure that victory for the Boilermakers. We'll have that here for you next. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Boilermakers, last week, Ryan Brown really delivered in a big way. Getting it done, the only quarterback to throw for 300 yards in the Big Ten. He came through, no hesitation, no delay. And just like Ryan Brown last week, DoorDash can do that too. DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday on your order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow that. What moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than just safety. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Picks awards than anyone else. You can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's the small details that makes the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. In our last segment, we talked about the keys to victory for the Purdue Boilermakers. And in this segment, I want to talk about the 3 guys that I think need to step up, the 3 guys that need to get involved if Purdue's going to find success tomorrow night, if Purdue is going to win that game. And I want to start right off with the guy that we talked about in our first segment, and that is a guy that I've been very high on, and that is Devin Mockabee. We know how good the mock train is. We know how good that he has been consistently over his career at Purdue. We know the talent that he is at running back, but Devin Mockabee needs to get involved. And that's not something that we saw a whole lot week 1. We saw that he got over 100 all-purpose yards, but he didn't get as many touches as I necessarily would like to see him get. And obviously it was week 1. You want to figure out some different things. You're able to kind of do a few different things when you're facing off against a team like Ball State, but just in general, I want to see Devin Mockabee get more touches. I really want to see that ground game kind of get asserted early with Mockabee this week. I want to see in those first couple drives him really get the ball. And if something opens up for Ryan Brown to throw the ball down the field, if you have a matchup that you like, then by all means, go for it. But it was like in week 1 that they weren't intentionally getting Devin Mockabee the ball. And that's something that I'd like to see change, because you can't stop Devin Mockabee when he's running at the speed that he's able to run at. He's such an amazing running back, and you can't stop Ryan Brown whenever he has the option of Devin Mockabee, because that's when the play action opens up. And we know that's what Barry Odom loves to do. He loves to operate in play action. He loves that run first offense where you're able to open up the passing game through your running back. And that's something that Devin Mockabee offers so well for this Purdue team, but you have to get that guy involved. I want him getting more touches. And we saw that and on that first drive, like I said, he had that big run, and then that opened up the play action. And that's not always going to be there. And you need to start opening it up over the course of the game. So get Devin Mockabee involved early. It's not a matter of production for Devin Mockabee, I don't think. I think that he can really run on whatever team he wants to run on. If you give him the ball, he's going to be able to produce, but you just have to get that guy the ball. And week 2, Southern Illinois, it's the perfect opportunity to get that guy the ball, because just like Ball State, it's a team that you can't underestimate, but you are going to have a little bit of a larger margin of error than when you face off a team in the Big Ten. And that's just the nature of it. But you need to get Devin Mockabee involved early, and you need to get him involved in this game so that you know what you have, so that you can kind of build that offense up going into future weeks around Devin Mockabee, because that's when this team is going to be the best. The pass was open in week 1, but it's not always going to be the case. You're going to have to get Devin Mockabee early, so it opens up more opportunities for your offense. You're able to do different things with that offense, and that's all kind of a result of what Devin Mockabee is at the running back and how much kind of attention that he draws from DBs, from safeties, from the backers. It shifts up everything on the opposing team's defense when you're able to get that running game going early. So that's something that I want to see. That's a guy that I want to see get involved, and I want to see him kind of be very active early, getting a lot of touches. So that's my guy on the offensive side of the ball that is going to be a key player week 2 against Southern Illinois. And then shifting over onto the defensive side of the ball, we saw this guy have a lot of success last week, and I expect that to continue going into next week. And we can really see what this guy is, and that guy is Mani Powell. He comes over from UNLV along with a bunch of other guys this offseason, alongside Barry Odom to Purdue, and he really broke out last week in week 1. He had that explosive play off the edge on that big third down, sacking Khalil Kelly, and really putting an end to all of Ball State's momentum at that time. But he was more than just an edge rusher in that game. He was really all over the field whenever Khalil Kelly wanted to rush the ball, whenever he wanted to improvise on his feet. And we saw that a lot was drawn up for Kelly in the running game. Mani Powell was really able to stop that at a lot of times. We saw that his pursuit was really good, did a good job tackling. He really had a solid game with 5 total tackles, 4 solos, an assist, and then that big sack that came up in the third quarter. Those stats don't necessarily jump off the page, but he was so much more than what the stats say. He had a really big game, and he was all over the field. And when you think about what Powell does, that opens up the linebacker core for Sanders Ellis. He's able to really get involved because of how agile Mani Powell is. He's like a big multi-tool out there on the field. He can be an edge rusher for you. He can be a linebacker in pass coverage. He can pursue on the run. He can do whatever you want. We saw at Arkansas, didn't really get a whole lot of playing time, was solid out of high school, big recruit, goes to Arkansas, doesn't find a whole lot of success there in his freshman year, and then goes over to UNLV alongside Barry Odom, had a lot of success there, and then he really breaks onto the scene last week against Ball State. So we know Mani Powell's due for another big game. He's really cementing himself as one of the top guys, a big senior on the defensive core, and just building a defensive identity that happens with Sanders Ellis, that happens with Carrera, that happens with Mani Powell. Mani Powell is going to be one of the biggest key players for Purdue this week, and it happens on the defensive side of the ball. And then I have one more guy on the defensive side of the ball that really I'd like to see produce at a high level tomorrow against Southern Illinois, and that is Tahj Ra-el. He was in a lot of heat over the offseason. There were some alleged text messages that came out where he tipped off an opposing quarterback about kind of the play calling for Memphis, where he was at Memphis last year. Like I said, those were alleged, and Purdue said they're not concerned about him. So obviously that happens. And then Purdue, they know more than I know. They know more than people in social media know, and they're willing to give him that opportunity. He transfers over to Purdue, and we saw a solid game for him in week 1 against Southern Illinois. And he's a guy that we know is going to be very pivotal for that defensive back group this year. 7 tackles in that one. So he was all over the field as well. And we talked about how last week those defensive backs didn't really get tested. And I expect that to change this week. I expect that to certainly change next week against Jaden Maiava. But DJ Williams is very capable as a passer, and we know that he's going to attempt to pass the ball quite a lot because that's where Southern Illinois finds a lot of success. So key to victory this week for Purdue is limiting that passing game. And at the safety spot, Tahj Ra-el is going to be a large part of that. So not only do I want him tackling, I want him to be all over the field as a safety in pursuit, stopping the run. I think that he's going to play a big part into stopping that passing game as well, covering the right guys, kind of playing all over the field, being a ball hawk in that secondary. I think that Tahj Ra-el is going to be very important to what Purdue does throughout the rest of the year, but he's going to be very important against a good passer tomorrow night. Hopefully he can limit DJ Williams. Hopefully Mani Powell can have another huge game at the linebacker position, wreaking havoc, and then hopefully Purdue is able to get Devin Mockabee involved early, get that running game going early on, and then open up that play action. I think that Purdue will find success tomorrow night. I think that they're going to get a big victory, and I think these guys are really going to stand out tomorrow. We'll talk about the rest of the league. We'll talk about the Big Ten, what teams are playing, my predictions. We'll have that here for you next. Hey, Boilermaker fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or on Google Play right now and start earning at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just by making their daily commits, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode is also brought to you guys by our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet, whether that's futures, parlays, it doesn't matter. You can do it. You can even live bet with FanDuel. Jump into action after it's already started. Get in live. And you can do all that if you just download that FanDuel app today. You can do that right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We've talked all episode long about how Purdue can find success tomorrow night against Southern Illinois, but there are some other huge games going on this weekend in the Big Ten, games that are going to affect Purdue's opponents, and I'm going to go predict them. And this rapid reaction before we end off the show today. So Friday night, tonight, Western Illinois, Northwestern, 6:30 p.m. Last week, we saw Northwestern had a really rough go of it against Tulane. And Preston Stone didn't show much promise. Throwing for 4 interceptions, no touchdowns in that one. SMU transfer. Northwestern's favored 28 points against Western Illinois. I think Northwestern will be better this week. I still think that they're going to be the worst team in the Big Ten, but they'll get it done against Western Illinois. And then Maryland really surprised some people. Maryland wasn't projected to be very good this year. Last week against FAU, they really overperformed, winning that one huge, and they play Northern Illinois, who last year we saw them beat Notre Dame in a game much like this. I don't think that they'll be able to pull the same magic. I got Maryland winning that game and improving to 2-0 on the year. And then Florida International goes into Penn State. That's going to be a big one in Happy Valley. Florida International against Penn State, who is looking like the best Penn State team that we've seen in years. James Franklin is really putting a great team together this year under Drew Aller, senior quarterback who has a lot of pocket presence. Penn State's going to be really good this year, and they're going to roll tomorrow or Saturday against FIU. And then Illinois and Duke. This line has been a little bit interesting because Illinois is only favored by 2.5 going into Durham, North Carolina. And honestly, I think that Illinois should be a bit of a bigger favorite. I'm really high on what Illinois has been able to put on the field this year. They bring back a ton of seniors. They bring back a ton of starters. And Luke Altmaier, senior quarterback over there, is looking to have a big year. I think that offense is going to roll for the Illini Saturday against Duke. That's going to be a big game, 11 spot or noon Eastern on ESPN. That one's going to be huge for Luke Altmaier and his Illini. I think that they're going to be able to get the win on the road against the Blue Devils. And then Battle of Iowa at Iowa State, Iowa. This is going to be a really interesting one. I honestly haven't been sold on Iowa State, and a lot of that may be the lag from going over to Dublin, but they get it done against Kansas State in a close one. And then last week against North Dakota, not North Dakota State, just North Dakota, they pull off a last-minute victory. I wouldn't be surprised if the Iowa Hawkeyes pull this one out on the road. And I will say the Iowa Hawkeyes will upset the Iowa State Cyclones on the road in that Battle of Iowa. Right now, Iowa State is a 3.5-point favorite in that one. I got the Hawkeyes in that one. Last week, Indiana, the Hoosiers didn't look great against the Old Dominion Royals. Kind of trying to get some stuff figured out. Kurt Cignetti in his second year with the Hoosiers got his team to the college football playoff this year. They're looking to get back there. They face off against Kennesaw State. And as much as I can't stand the Hoosiers, I think that one will be pretty easy for Indiana. I think that they'll bounce back this week and pretty much get that statement win that they were looking for last week in the Northwestern State at Minnesota. That one will be pretty easy. I don't even have a line on that one. I think Darius Taylor will get early, active, and just find a lot of success. He had 30 carries last week. I expect that to be a bit of the same. Darius Taylor is going to carry that PJ Fleck offense this year. I got Minnesota in that one. Ohio State, Grambling, that one doesn't need to be talked about. Ohio State gets a huge win over the Longhorns last week. Julian Sayin didn't look the best, but he looked good enough to get it done. That Ohio State defense looks nasty. Oklahoma State, Oregon, this will be a fun game. We've seen a lot. Mike Gundy talks about how Oregon outspins everybody. Dan Lanning kind of fires back. So a little bit of emotion in that game. Oregon is a 4-touchdown favorite in that one. I expect the Ducks to get it done. Last week, the mascot's head falls off, but they still get a huge victory. This week, I think Oregon will get it done again and get a big win over Oklahoma State. Miami of Ohio at Rutgers. This is one that may surprise some people. Miami of Ohio really hung around last week against Wisconsin. Rutgers is a 15.5-point favorite, but Rutgers didn't look great last week at all. They won on a last-second field goal against Ohio. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami of Ohio sticks in this one and gives Rutgers some trouble, but I do think Rutgers will be able to pull it out and start their season 2-0. Middle Tennessee at Wisconsin. Big upset last week. Middle Tennessee gets taken out by FCS opponent in Austin Peay. They go on to face Wisconsin, who didn't look all that good last week, really struggling against Miami of Ohio. Wisconsin needs to get that offense going early. Middle Tennessee doesn't look good at all, but I think Wisconsin will be able to get a big win, but that's the storyline in this one. Wisconsin needs that offense going, and they need to form some type of statement about this offense is here and Wisconsin's going to be competitive this year. Luke Fickell really needs to get those guys going and quick. And then big game, 6:30 spot on ABC, Oklahoma, Michigan. Michigan at Oklahoma in Norman. I honestly have Oklahoma in this one. I think that Bryce Underwood is going to struggle a little bit. Freshman quarterback, uber talented, but going into a tough environment. Norman at night, that one's going to be pretty tough. Oklahoma looked good last week, and I think that Michigan's going to struggle. I got Oklahoma in that one. Nebraska against Akron. Akron at Nebraska. Nebraska will get that one done pretty easily. They looked solid against Cincinnati. A little bit stagnant at times, but they looked all right. Nebraska gets that one done. USC will beat Georgia Southern. That offense put up like 70 points last week. Absolutely insane. Boston College at Michigan State. This will be a close one. Michigan State is favored 3.5 points. I'm not huge on what Michigan State has been able to do this year. I don't think that they'll be amazing. I think that Boston College is actually going to upset Michigan State at home in East Lansing. I've got the Boston College Eagles in that game. And then Southern Illinois at Purdue. There's no line on that one, and that's good for the Boilermakers. I think that Purdue will once again be able to cement themselves early, get it going with Ryan Brown, open up that play action with Devin Mockabee early, find a lot of success on the offensive side of the ball, and then limit a guy in DJ Williams who's going to want to stretch you out, who's going to want to be productive on the offensive side of the ball. I think Purdue's going to have a lot of success and get Barry Odom in a historic company, starting out 2-0 for the first time since 1916. UCLA at UNLV. And this one's only a 2.5 favorite for UCLA. UNLV didn't look good at all last week. UCLA sure didn't look good at all last week. I think that UCLA will pull this one out just because I don't think people really understand how big Barry Odom was at UNLV. Under Dan Mullen, that team hasn't looked the same at all. I think that although UCLA struggled, although UCLA doesn't look good, they'll get it done against UNLV. And then final game of the night, Washington, huge favorites over UC Davis. Not much to talk about in that one. Washington will get that one done and potentially get themselves back up into that AP poll. So a lot of big games this weekend. Purdue, Southern Illinois, 6:30, 7:30 Eastern at night at Ross-Ade. That game will be huge. Barry Odom is looking to become the first Purdue coach since 1916 to start his tenure out 2-0. We'll have post-game coming your way right after that one on Saturday. Thank you guys for joining us today on this Purdue pregame show. Week 2, Southern Illinois. We can't wait for that one. We got big news coming once again your way for Locked On. A lot to be excited about over here. It's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank you guys for joining us. Go Boilermakers, and as always, Boiler up, hammer down.